So dear friends, as we'll transition into the next part of our program, and yeah, we should feel free as well throughout the program. If we need to use the restroom or anything, just feel free to do so. So we'll begin with the sound of the bell, just to come back to our breathing, come back to our body. So the next part of our program, we had the idea to have a panel of graduate and postdoctoral trainees, because the emphasis of this symposium is actually on the next generation of how we can grow and transform scientific research, integrating mindfulness practice with our scientific endeavor. So I'd like to introduce the moderator for this panel, which is Nour Hammad, who's right here. And Nour, so we've known each other for more than 20 years, I think. And so Nour was a nun from a very young age in the Plum Village tradition. And she went out to pursue higher education, and is now a PhD candidate at Harvard University's Graduate School in Arts and Sciences, where she's studying applied ethics and moral psychology. Nour graduated from the University of Southern California with a joint degree in cognitive neuroscience and religion, and then received an MDiv from Harvard Divinity School. And yeah, she's also played a role in caring for our teacher when he had a massive stroke, and she is very skilled with acupuncture, and I know she's done acupuncture for my mom, and my mom was so happy. And she's just an overall brilliant person, so I'm very happy to introduce Nour Hammad.
Thank you so much, Brother Fepalu. I would love to invite our panelists up to the podium, to the chairs. You know, I would love to take some time to introduce one by one our panelists. And at the same time, I think it would be so much better if you got to know them through their brilliance, as I've gotten to get to know them through their brilliance. I will introduce their names, though. First is Joya. Joya is a PhD candidate at Dartmouth. We got Nour. Nour is also a PhD candidate at Harvard University. And we have Adriana, who's a postdoc here at Dartmouth University. I actually don't have a game plan, but here we go. We're gonna speak as the spirit moves me, right? So I think on this whole panel, maybe only in this room, I am probably the only person who is squarely in the humanities, unapologetically in the humanities. And I make that as a disclaimer so that I could sort of set us up for the conversation that we're gonna have. And because I am squarely in the humanities, studying Buddhism, studying ethics, studying moral psychology, I'm gonna use the word love and care with reckless abandon, okay? Because I think that when we are talking about mindfulness, especially for me in the Buddhist context, it cannot be abandoned. You cannot abandon the agenda of love and care, because in mindfulness practice, it is, especially in the Buddhist context, again, it is supported by systems of liberation, right? liberation for yourself, and then liberation for those around you as well. So on Saturday, I'm setting us up now, okay? That's just my disclaimer. We're gonna talk about love and becoming on this panel in this moment, okay? On Saturday, when I met Adriana, she was wearing a t-shirt that really stuck with me. How many of you guys know Mr. Rogers? The beloved Mr. Rogers. That's right. Adriana was wearing this bomb shirt that had Mr. Rogers on there, and it just said, "Be kind." And that shirt kind of stuck with me for the rest of the weekend because it also made me think of this speech that Mr. Rogers had delivered a few years ago when he was receiving an award. And as soon as he got up to receive this award, he stood at the podium, just very still and quiet as Mr. Rogers would. And Mr. Rogers just said, "I want to invite everyone to take a few moments to just think of the people that have loved you into being." And that was such a beautiful moment because he'd captivated a room full of just people there receiving awards. There was like 600-700 people. And he asked people to think about the people who have loved you into being. And so, because I'm inspired by Adriana's shirt, Mr. Rogers, the goodness of it all, I'm thinking about mindfulness now as we fold it into our becoming, right? And I didn't want to pigeonhole any of our panelists here, my colleagues here, and I asked permission because we're on this journey together. We're here and we're walking this journey together, so I wanted to ask my panelists to share their story of becoming, right? First and foremost, when I meet them, I see a beautiful human being. I don't just see a scientist. I see them as a whole, complex, beautiful person. And mindfulness is playing a role in that, and other things are also playing a role in conjunction with that mindfulness as well. And so I wanted to sort of open up the space for our panelists to share about their becoming, about how mindfulness has played a part in whatever part of your becoming that comes to mind to you right now. And again, as the spirit moves you.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
It's a pleasure to be here to talk about the journey of my becoming into the person that I am today. And for me, mindfulness is a practice. It's a practice that calms you down when you need to be calmed down. And for me, it is housed in my belief system, which is Islam. I think mindfulness is a good practice to have, but it has to have it has to be embedded in something like bigger. And for me, that is my religion, which is Islam. And my journey of becoming means, to me, my journey of being the person that I am today through my practice of Islam mindfully, which tells me to pray like 5 times a day. So I wake up every day in the morning at around 5 to 6 a.m. and start my day by praying, by forming that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is God. And to me, that is a way to start my day really in a very relaxed way, where I am thinking about my being and thinking about all sorts of beings. And it is exactly how I start my day. And then I move on with my day and I perform my second prayer that tells me to calm down, that connects me again to my being, that makes me stop everything else that I'm doing and think of me in the moment, in the present moment. And then I do that a 3rd time, and a 4th time, and a 5th time, and I do that every single day of my existence, ever since I was, I would say, a child. And that is a part of my becoming, and that is a way where I practice mindfulness, because prayer to me, it involves me raising my hands and ask for what I want. It involves me bending down and thinking about the creations around me. It involves me to go down and do something called sajda, where your nose and your forehead is touching the ground. And I'm just being genuinely grounded. I am being grounded, and I'm being grateful. And I'm walking even, and it doesn't just have to be prayer. I can be walking and thinking to myself, Alhamdulillah, which means thank God, like thank Allah, because I'm thinking of all the blessings around me. One of the very beautiful things that Joya and Joya has so kindly hosted me, and we were actually talking about sneezing. So I have allergies and I tend to sneeze quite often. And we were talking about like the way you say bless you. And I told her one thing that's really beautiful in Islam is when every single time we sneeze, we don't just wait for the other person to say bless you. We actually say thank God when we sneeze. And that's something that's so beautiful to me, because even in a small thing as a sneeze, we thank God for being alive in that moment. And that is my way of becoming, because I am thankful in every moment of my existence, and I'm always just contemplating about the wonders and the creations, and that is unapologetically like me.
Hello, everyone. Not identify, but I see myself as like a tree, and my becoming is, I guess, the trunk of the tree, and the roots being the learning and the teachings, and especially what I learn from other people. And I've just, since I was very, very, very little, always wanted to help people. And so much that I thought I wanted to go to medical school, and then I was pre-med in college, and then learned that I don't really like people. Well, I love people, but it's more of the things that come out of people, like the nasty things. And so I made a pivot and went into research because I really wanted to help people. And so that's kind of where my journey led me. And while I knew I wanted to help people in sort of the like medical field, biomedical field, I noticed that I could better serve my community and my colleagues and my family by learning more about myself. And so it's kind of this like cyclical learning from and about other people, so that I can then be more informed about myself. And it's like a craving or a hunger that it just doesn't stop. And I feel that daily. Every day I get up, I'm hungry. And I'm grateful for that hunger. I love being hungry and knowing that there's something for me to strive for every day, not necessarily do every day. Some days I just need to be. And that is something that I learned during my PhD journey. I had a pretty rough PhD journey, especially as a minority in science. And mindfulness really helped me to get through that and realize that I'm not alone, I'm not the only one. And through that, giving and sharing and informing what I've learned through the practice and through teachings of mindfulness and meditation, it builds, and it built like one of the mantras I use is the better it gets, the better it gets. And it's so true for me every day to live authentically and truthfully to what I believe. And so not just when I'm practicing alone or on retreats with everyone, but when I'm in the grocery store, or if I'm in the lab and I'm helping other graduate students, or even my own boss, I really feel like I see them, and they have something to offer me, and I have something to offer them, and it feels like this really powerful collaboration. And that's what I love. I just love going out and collaborating. And it's all a collaboration. We're all working together, even when we're not planning to or organizing it. It's still this kind of like a beehive. We're all kind of in this rhythm, even though we don't necessarily perceive it. And so in my becoming is really, it's because of all of you. And I wouldn't be me without all of you, because I need that contrast. I need that, not necessarily separation, but the definition of myself is based off of all of the definitions of you. So, thank you.
I'm Joya. I'm Chinese, so my name is also in Chinese, but it sounds similar to joy. When I think about becoming, I see it as a journey. It's a process of constantly growing, knowing myself, seeking joy. Through seeking joy, I get to know what my true passion is, what I love, what I don't like, and knowing what I don't like, what I like, also helped me to find peace and make peace with it and just accept that, it's natural that I don't like this. This is unpleasant. But there's also a lot of beautiful things that I really enjoy, the pleasant things, like the nature, like learning. I really enjoy learning. I think it sounds really precious to say that, because I notice a lot of my friends who are also PhD students, somehow in this learning journey, they lost that joy, that curiosity, that motivated them to pursue a career in academia, that hunger for knowledge, for greater understanding. Practicing mindfulness helped me to constantly remind myself to keep seeking joy and stay connected with my intention of why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think it's very important because I've lost that in the past. That was when I first experienced burnout. It's so unpleasant. It just, that feeling of bitterness that I feel really bored with what I was doing. Like somehow that thing that really makes me feel so happy learning and reading and writing just feels so dull. And it was really unpleasant. It also taught me a great lesson that I couldn't afford to live that way anymore. I've had to keep seeking joy and finding that true calling. And to me, I'm very fortunate to have really supportive family and teachers who really support me to seek joy and pursue what interests me, which is public health. Because like Adriana, I have this hope to heal people. If I could have a superpower, I would want it to be healing. And that's why I pursue a career in public health. I think I want to use my research, my teaching to help more people live a happy and healthy life. And this is my journey of becoming. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the panels. As I was sitting here and listening and just taking in your wisdom and the story of your becoming, I'm noticing like what we call a fine red thread that sort of connects all of these stories together, of the aspiration and the wanting to be of service to other people, to both grounding ourselves in a sense of gratitude, understanding ourselves fundamentally, and also to be of service to the other people. So this relationship to mindfulness sounds like it's not just one way, it's two-way. There's a reciprocity in there. There's a sort of circularity in the ways in which you engage in your mindfulness practice. I am a benefactor. So many people have loved me into being, and I have really, really fantastic teachers. And one of my teachers he said to me, Nya, when we go out hunting, we only hunt big game, okay? And this is in terms of our research questions, right? We hunt big game. So I'm going to ask permission from my panelists to hunt big game with me, right? As we're thinking about ourselves and the ways in which we're cultivating and understanding ourselves, not just as researchers, but as human beings, and then thinking about our aspirations of being of service to other people. You know, in this very moment, all of our mindfulness practice, well, mindfulness in the sutras always says mindfulness has to have an object of mindfulness, right? You always have to be mindful of something. And so if we're mindful of the moment we find ourselves in right now, as young researchers, as folks in the ivory tower of knowledge production, what are our ethical obligations to the time? How do you imagine what your ethical obligations are to this very time that we're living through? However you want to believe, whatever your vision of the time that we're living through, we're all living through some time right now. What do you think, in your imagination, are our ethical obligations as scientists, as researchers, and actually, more importantly, as human beings who are trying to live well with and for each other?
That's a really great question, given the current political climate, not just in the US, but also internationally. And I would say that for me, I don't necessarily seek joy or happiness. I seek purpose, and I am asked to seek purpose. And happiness and joy is a byproduct of seeking purpose. And what that purpose looks like is we're all in public health for a reason, which is the betterment of population health, the betterment of lives of people who all deserve to be treated humanely, and with all the kindness that we have to continue to build this cycle of just living in a dignified manner. And that is something that we owe as humans, as public health researchers, and as activists, to speak up when the world needs us to speak up when the entire world is like burning, to really be there and to show up in research and in spaces where we know that our words can make a difference, to be there for one another and to speak up, no matter. Some of us are more privileged than others. And that is a given, and that's okay, but if you can use your privilege to really make a difference, to step it up and to say, and to defend those that are less privileged, I think that is something that we can do as public health researchers, and that is often something, we're so focused on publishing and like the numbers, but people and humans are more than numbers. We're more than numbers. Each one of us has a narrative and has a story that we can share to make the world a better place. And for example, one way that I have been actively trying to do is conducting like a photo voice study where people would take stories of something that reminds them of a certain situation. For example, I'm looking at food insecurity. And participants would take these pictures and then talk about their experiences through the pictures to change the world, and how they can use those pictures to change the situation for, like, let's say, fellow immigrants who come to the US looking for a better place. So I think being mindful of the situation that people are forced into, for example, like a refugee never asked to be a refugee, right? You should never be forced to stay on land versus in water. And like these are things that we need to be mindful of and that we need to continuously advocate for. So we have to be better humans for our fellow humans, and we as researchers who have more privilege perhaps than other people should be advocates for them.
So for me, I guess I'm thinking about, we had dinner last night, and the table I was sitting at was filled with amazing people. And we had a conversation about the power of narratives. And that's just, I kind of brought it up, but it's because it's something I believe in, and I use that You know, it's really kind of, it's mine, I own it, and it's a tool I use. And I was explaining that I heard in this one motivational talk by a man named Les Brown, who said that you should use your narrative and tell your narrative so that you can help someone not just see themselves in your shoes or see how you've overcome a difficulty, but just enough to get them out of their own way to think of a new narrative for themselves. And I just thought that was so powerful. And so that's what I do, is I try to show up as my authentic self. And if I see someone, not just my own observation, especially if they share with me they're going through a difficult time, I offer my narrative and I offer my perspective, and kind of just like how I addressed a similar issue, or like a funny anecdote to kind of lighten the mood, because we all want the same thing. We all want to feel safe and secure and reassured and have faith in something. And so if I could give them something to have faith in, or to just feel 1% better in that moment, to where they can be able to take that breath, just to inhale and kind of take a second and say, yes, this is a difficult time for me now, and I can see a way through it, or I can see at least the next breath, or I can take just one more step. And so this is something that I do. Like, we believe in decreasing suffering for ourselves and suffering in the world, and I think one way is to really uphold the power of narrative. We each have a story, and if we were to kind of analyze all of our stories, they're not too different. Just some of the settings are different, or some of the characters are different, but the script is kind of the same, and some of the episodes are just filler, and that's what makes the plot good. But in the end, we know the hero is going to come out good in the end. And I truly believe in the hero's journey, that we aren't just put through suffering for no reason, for no insight. So I try not to offer advice, but when I feel like I need to offer advice, it's usually to just do things in your own time, because time is such a precious commodity, and it seems like it's unlimited, and it is. And it also seems like it's limited, and it is. We each have our own clock of time here, and we have our own purpose, whatever that looks like from moment to moment. It's our choice. And so another thing we talked about at dinner was, we've heard that knowledge is power, but I believe knowledge is freedom, and freedom is power, and we're not truly free until we know all the choices and possibilities that are before us. And until you have the knowledge to create options for yourself, you're not truly free. Then you don't truly have power. And so what I want to really do is empower people to make choices that are right for them, in alignment with their journey, and form opinions for themselves, and then use the power of their narrative to help someone else in that same way. So, thank you.
Thank you. I definitely feel very cared by Adriana, because I told her at the dinner that last night I'm actually a shy speaker. I got nervous on the stage because I think this is actually my first time being on a panel, and it's actually quite a vulnerable place. Like I have a lot of empathy for the speakers now, because it's a lot of people listening. I feel like your time is very precious, and I want to appreciate that and really try my best to contribute to this conversation. I think I also believe in a hero story, but it can seem a bit daunting, just because it just sounds like there are so many things that need our help right now. But it can feel quite daunting, and to me, like also not knowing where to begin. But then, like during the walking meditation, I felt really empowered. It really gave me a lot of courage just to take the first step to be different, just to have the courage dare to be different, and knowing it's the right thing to do, then I can take that action, even though it might seem different or weird to some people. Like the walking meditation, like we passed by a lot of students and they seem very confused. They're like, why are they all walking so slowly? We seem so different from all of them. The pace, it's so different. But we all know that was the right thing to do, and it really empowered me through that process, give me the courage to dare to be different and be myself and just try my best, take action in my daily life. Start, even if it's small action, like offering a smile to others. That can be really powerful. I already noticed that from the monastic teachers. Their smile melts my heart every time. Yeah, and it's a small action, but yet it's so powerful. And that's just one example, and I think we can all think of examples like that to encourage others around us, to empower them, and just make this world a kinder and better place if we can smile at each other and just be kind to each other and help each other and do our best. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for such beautiful sharings. I am really taken aback by the message of how mindfulness is shaping everyone's relationship to their ethical imagination, right? I think in a time like this, especially when burnout is so prevalent, when we're so exhausted, it's really hard to imagine life otherwise, right? But it's so important to take refuge in that mindfulness practice because it gives you that space in order to imagine a better world. And you know, before when I stepped into as a Buddhist nun, you have a precept that you're not allowed to read novels. I, for the most part, followed that rule. But then as I stepped into my PhD program, my advisor wouldn't give me any Buddhist books to read. He kept giving me novels. And I was like, I'm not reading that. I've got things to do. Come on, we gotta think about this world as a better. We gotta think about things. And he just insisted that I read novels over and over and over again. And I said, fine. He gave me a novel. It was 600 pages long. And I read it. And I came back to him over the weekend. On Monday, I came back to him and he said, how was the book? And I said, it was so boring. It was long and drawn out. He goes, it is so boring. But there's this one line in there, and it makes it all worth it. And I was like, dang, you couldn't have just told me that line. And he said, no, but it was a journey. He's like, you had to read the terrible writing in order to really appreciate this one line, because then it's going to mean a lot more to you when you get to this line. And I asked him, why do you keep pushing novels on me? And he says, because if you cannot imagine, then you cannot think of other ways of being, right? And this comes to what you guys were sharing, like brings in the story for me, because as Nour mentioned, a mindfulness practice becomes the basis of this sort of fearlessness, right? This ability to speak up, this ability to acknowledge your power where you have it and put that power into practice. Because there's often a way where we think power is something that's only negative. But we live in a world where we're constantly navigating power, and when we're mindful of the power becomes a tool for liberation, right? And then it goes right back to Adriana's point, right? When you have power and it becomes a tool for liberation, that is true power, right? And thinking about how do I empower other people? And it goes back to, if you were in the Dharma talk over the weekend, Sister Tae talks about your joy is my joy. Man, have you ever been in a room when everyone around you is liberated and feeling really free and unapologetically themselves? The vibes are different, right? The vibes are totally different. And so how do we exist and live in such a way where we feel both empowered and we feel we can lean into our power with mindful discernment of how we're using the power, and then feel that courage to exist. The courage to affirm life as it is alive, right? And so, I'm really grateful for our panelists for sharing sort of like it really is like an overarching story of how mindfulness is applied to the self, and then how mindfulness then is extended into the world, and how you're thinking about it as young researchers. And this is something that is really sort of in the forefront of my mind as someone who's thinking a lot about ethics. That mindfulness, oftentimes people think mindfulness, soft, love, soft, right? But I don't think that's true. And you can see it through the stories of the panelists here. Mindfulness and love and the ethics and the moral convictions, those things are hard. I would say they're very hardcore. And I think about this in terms of my teacher, when he was doing a lot, Thai, Tin Han, when he was working he's working towards peace during the Vietnam War. And as Brother Fapalu mentioned, he had the School of Youth for Social Services, and he created the 14 mindfulness trainings during that time of the Order of Interbeing. And one of the trainings, number 9, because I'm reading about this, and it goes to Nour's point, at the end of number 9, he says, I vow to speak up for those who are oppressed, even if it meant endangering my own life. And so you can see that mindfulness isn't just a feel-good, it's a do-good, right? You can't stop at the feel-good, because it's a part of this, in the Buddhist system, it's a part of the Eightfold Path, like Dr. Lazar mentioned. And so I'm so grateful that our panelists here, I know we're at time, I'm so grateful that our panelists here were able to really embody that and show that to us as we're starting to step into the world that we live in. And we're all here trying to do our best, affirming life. And I'd like to thank our panelists. I'm trying to land this plane as smoothly as possible. So I'd like to thank our panelists. They were so wonderful. And I thank the audience. I know we were trying to leave time for questions, but we don't have that time. We have maybe sometime, if anyone has any questions for our panelists, I would be more than happy to run the mic to you, so you could ask of, these, this is the future, y'all. You gotta ask questions to the future. Don't lose this opportunity. Oh, yes.
Thank you so much. Being in my 50s and in public health, there's so much fear and anxiety and what are we gonna do? The narrative in one of my circles is really down. And not to simplify it for being down, but to hear the three of you, young women researchers, I guess my question is, where will you speak next to crowds, and who will you speak to, and who will listen, and who will be there, and I'll help you do it. I just feel so full of power and love and science and Thai, and it's very powerful for me today, and I do hope many, many more people than our room get to hear just this.
It wasn't really a question, but thank you. And also, I will speak at anything you invite me to. This is also my first time doing this, and I also get really, really bad anxiety doing public speaking. it's actually what led me into doing mindfulness meditation, to get over my anxiety, since this is kind of part of my job is to give like seminar talks. So more opportunities would be great for me. And yeah, we did brave, hard things today. I'm proud of all of us for doing hard stuff. And I'm really sweaty, so I'm glad this is over.
I'm sorry, Adriana, it's not over. Sister Taegim in the back has a question.
Sorry, not over yet. Thank you to our panelists for your sharing, and just by your presence, I find it very inspirational. There was a comment that caught my my ear in particular, about the practice of mindfulness helping us to navigate sometimes in spaces as minorities, whether by culture perhaps, or by perspective, or by experience, or all three. And so I was wondering if any of our three panelists could speak a little bit more to that, how your practice, whether you call it mindfulness or your spiritual practice, helps you to feel more at home, or to create more a kind of space to invite a feeling of home in sometimes unfamiliar settings. Thank you.
Thank you for asking this question. I know it was your comment about minorities, but it's in relation to also what I was trying to say with privilege, because privilege is, it's subjective. You can be very well educated, and maybe that'll make you privileged in one space, but maybe you are an international student right now and that makes you less privileged. And for me, being a part of the minority, that always means there's a risk. As a Muslim, that to me right now, for example, is part of being brave. As a Palestinian right now, this is me being brave right here. As a woman, that is me being brave right now to be here and even mention these things. And just being like a minority in many, many spaces, that means having to put my brave face on and put my best foot forward to just really be honest and vulnerable and share these things. And although I am less anxious when it comes to public speaking, it comes from my Muslim duty to speak up for my fellow brothers and sisters from all different religions and from all different beliefs, and it means that I have to be brave for them, and this is my moral and ethical obligation, and if I don't do it, I don't know who else would. That's my sense of shared responsibility and our collective commitment.
I would like to comment on one benefit I get from practicing mindfulness, which is that openness and non-judgment. Actually, through practicing mindfulness, I find it easier to see the commonality and the values shared by different religions, also spirituality, different backgrounds. I can see those shared values like love, compassion, understanding, and this hope for a better future for all of us. And I think that's very powerful. It can really unite us and help us to understand each other and collaborate to work together for a better future. Yeah, so that's the humility and openness are two great gifts I got from practicing mindfulness. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are at time, Sister Taegim. I don't know if you remember this Dharma talk from Tai one time. Tai said, everybody is worthy of love, but not everyone is easily lovable. And that is something that's always in my mind as I step into spaces, and I'm like, I'm gonna move with love. Even though maybe sometimes these people are kind of hard to love right now, I'm still gonna move forward with love. And this is what Joya reminded me of, that mindfulness practice is always pushing us forth to be in the space of courage, of love, of openness, of just knowing how to take care of this moment. And in this moment, I have gotten the signal that it is time. And so I'm gonna take care of this moment to say thank you so much to everyone, and thank you for your questions, and thank you to the panelists.
What amazing people. Thank you so much.